Hey, man, that seems to be one of our trademarks now. Is that you get in there? What do you think, Kel?
I agree.
You know, it's kind of like it's not quite James Brown. I mean, it just is what it is. Welcome to What's the Matter podcast today. It's the G-Man, the Matterhorn Studio with Kel. And we are now on episode 33, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I just aged myself right there.
Right?
Just hope you forgive me, Kel. What's the matter with values?
Good question.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about how we decided
Right.
on this today. And what's the matter with values? They don't shatter, they erode.
Yes.
So in this episode, we are going to kind of have a little resplash of the business detective who's going to be back on the case. We're going to kind of frame this around a little business perspective and a little psychology perspective and employment and stuff like that. We're going to have some fun as normal.
Sounds good.
You know, kind of maybe like we say, maybe we'll agree, maybe we disagree, but we work through it and stuff like that. And you guys probably hear in the background there.
There's somebody in the background.
There's like a little mouse in the house. It's I think we have Mr. Art Arreola coming in from Bass Lake. How you doing, Art?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
Sorry if I'm making noises over here. I'm doing great. Hello, Reno. Happy New Year.
Yeah, you are
Good to be with
making
you guys.
you are making noise. What are you moving around? You getting your whiskey bottle? out?
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, you know, do it. Just do it. Yeah, you should be relaxing around there. I've been there in your place before. It's a nice spot. And yeah, we kind of gave a little precursor to Art about what we're going to be talking about today. So as we normally do, we'll work through this. And so we're going to be visiting the assertion again that values don't usually shatter, they erode, as I mentioned. And, a little caveat is, and they do this quietly, one redefinition at a time. So before we get started in the meat and potatoes, I wanted to say thank you. This episode is brought to you by World Matters Incorporated and produced and created by Big Bongo Productions. And so if you like real conversation with a little bit of humor and a lot of truth, I'd like to think, you're in the right place. So, hey, remind you, no politics, no religion. If we drift off, we're going to take that exit ramp.
Smack us down.
Back to human behavior, leadership, kind of, not that it's not involved in our lives, but we like to talk about more real life stuff. Right, Kel?
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Since that's all a game. It's
Yeah.
not just a bunch of fake crap.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah. Hey, be careful now. We just talked about that. So let's open this case file for the business detective and kind of define what we mean by values erosion and kind of set up the investigation.
Well, let's set this up too. Let's discuss how we came to this topic.
I will. I got that.
Okay.
I got that.
Okay.
Oh, as a matter of fact, it's right here. So introducing the case, Kelly she reads my mind a lot. It's like, just to remind you guys, the fun that we have is that I'll come, I'll of course have an outline and, make sure that it's free flowing. And I've learned through Miss Adrian, not to be so, anal,
Rigid.
Rigid. That's another way of putting it. Well, rigid and anal, that's almost sexual right there.
Right?
Some rigidity.
That's a little innuendo going on there.
What's going on here?
We can go back to 5th grade and make that work.
So, but one of Kel's friends, and I haven't met this gentleman yet, but Diaz Dixon. So Kel brought it to my attention. He was on Facebook, I believe, and here's what he said. Quote, "Random thought. Join in with civility, please." Then he went on to say, "Values don't shatter, they erode. A leader or system subtly changes the meaning of value. Transparency becomes strategic communication. Values apply to others, not to the person or system in power. Rules become tools, not principles. Harmful actions are reframed as necessary, noble, or protective." And he goes on to say, "I did learn last year in a great conversation that values are not necessarily universal. I was using the phrase lead with values. And this person challenged me on the definition of them. And then understanding that people have different values helps me also to understand what I can and cannot control. It all warrants a much larger conversation," end quote. So let's have that conversation. So we did invite Diaz down here, and he was not able to come, but I'm
we
sure
will in the future. We'll get this connected, because I really want to hear what he has to say about this.
Right, absolutely. So we'll talk about this, and then we'll actually use him to say you guys are right on, and maybe elaborate on things a little bit. But anyway, it was a fascinating.
It really was very thought provoking. I commented on his comment, and then forwarded it to you, and tagged you in it, and was like, this is a good discussion.
You kind of filtered it
a little bit.
So let's go, since we don't have Diaz here, let's go to Art. And Art, assuming you were paying attention, that was kind of a little long read there, but what is your first take or spin off of what I read to you?
Wow, this is a big subject. I love it. I mean, I've watched the values change so much since the time I was in the 60s as a young age, and what the standards were in society and in our cultural America. I think what was being promoted and how they began to, I think erode's a good word if you valued those values. But I often wondered what would be substituted, and now I see it's just a fight for control. Who's going to control what standards, what values we're going to promote, and if they agree or not. It's not a negotiable thing anymore. I don't know if it was back then. I don't recall that, but they certainly have shifted.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of frame the case, so to speak, I do believe that he was really referring to dynamics, not that it's entirely isolated with this, Kel, but it was more kind of he is a business coach also. So kind of from the business setting, talking about your leaders in an organization, a company, whether it's an owner, a boss, a manager, and things like this, how sometimes, say, for example, thinking of just like a general type of thing, that a jargon, right, that companies say is like, value our employees.
Mission, vision, values.
Yes, right. And so it's something that they say, and there's ways that because of those values, they can be redefined in different ways that we're going to explore throughout this conversation. So the first one is, I want to frame the case again, just like, again, a detective would, is we're going to be looking for clues, right? So I want to throw this first clue out, right, and ask you guys collectively, how in a business setting, company setting, whether it's small, medium, or large, how does a value get redefined from the ownership's eyes? Yes.
Like
how does it
from what's written on the wall,
yes,
in the chart, to how it's actually expressed
or not
And how that happens is by behavior. You'll get everybody spouting values, company values, whatever it is, saying the terms and all the blah, but then they do their whatever underneath. So unless you really have people's true buy-in on the mission of what the company is, the values really are going to be nebulous.
Yeah. What about you, Art? Is there a reference that you can point to of when, say, an entity's value got redefined and you're recognizing this?
That, man, that's a tough one to pin down. I'll tell you what I've seen throughout the years, the guys, is that, we have to decide if the individual personal independence is more important than the greater good, or the tribe, if you will. And what should be, I mean, this is going back to Jefferson, founding fathers, what's more important, the states or the federal government. And there's become a great, I think, difference between, hey, we are a country of this nature, and now you have a lot of voices, and with, of course, having the ability of mass media like we have here in radio, podcasting, various things, everybody has a platform now. And so there's a lot of opinions on what our values should look like. And that's what I have seen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Another clue that I have here, you guys, is when, let's say, rules for thee but not for me type of thing that sometimes happens, where
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, your bosses are expecting effort or, sacrifices, and yet they never take, say they never work through the weekend on a team project.
Right.
It's always them.
They never get in the trenches.
They never get in the trenches, type of thing.
That'll erode values in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So what do you do when it's like that, when somebody applies rules to others but not the leaders?
You find a better job.
I
You
like
leave.
it. Yeah.
That doesn't change.
Yeah.
Unless the leadership changes. I've seen that go both ways.
Yeah.
I've seen leaders that were there that eroded the values, and new leaders come in that resurrect them, and vice versa.
Right.
Where a lot of times that's what'll happen. The mission, vision, values get set by the founder, the originator, the first CEO, the big, the one who built the company or took the company to that level, and then they leave. And the new one comes in and doesn't have the heart for it. It's a job to them. It's a role. It's, something to aggrandize themselves. It's good money. It's whatever. But they don't really buy into or feel the mission, vision, values in their heart and their behavior. Classic. Think Office Space. They come in and start cutting heads and mass layoffs and
Office Space. Yeah, the original
movie.
thing. Yeah, the movie. Yeah.
And
it's kind of like The Office is kind of like a spin off
similar
in a way.
Just that whole mentality of
I love The Office.
Yeah, I love Office Spaces and XIT.
Yeah.
It's funny. I know that was filmed in Las Colinas, Texas, right near where I lived. I knew every one of those buildings, and that restaurant that Jennifer Aniston works in with all the flair. It was actually called Frijoles. It was a Mexican restaurant that was right there in town in Las Colinas.
Well, what makes the movie and the show The Office so successful is because the absurdity that we all laugh
and we've
at,
all seen it.
That's what makes it so funny.
We've all lived through it.
Yeah, because
I actually worked for a company that had something called TPS reports. Honest to God, I lost it when I saw that.
Yeah.
I lost it. I couldn't believe they actually had a thing called a TPS report, and it wasn't a joke. I mean, they'd had it long before Office Space.
Yeah, and again, of course, you love acronyms, so you would
Absolutely.
Hello, Peter. What's happening? We have sort of a problem here. Yeah, you apparently didn't put one of the new cover sheets on your TPS report.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
Yeah. You see, we're putting the cover sheets on all TPS reports now before they go out. Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah, I have the memo right here. I just forgot. But it's not shipping out till tomorrow, so there's no problem.
Yeah. If you could just go ahead and make sure you do that from now on, that would be great. And I'll go ahead and make sure you get another copy of that memo. Okay?
Yeah, no, I have the memo. I've got it. It's right.
Hello, Phil. What's happening?
Now, what about you, Art? What do you do when you recognize, hey, man, this is like a one-way street here. That's the rules for thee, but not for me. Or when things are applied to others, but not the leaders of the company. Have you experienced anything like that? What do you do? What did you do?
Well, that's
Especially family-owned businesses, huh?
yeah. It's funny when we think of business. The first company that I worked for 25 years, we got bought and sold about 4 different times while I was there. And during the restructuring and rebranding, a lot of times values were kind of put on the shelf and really weren't thought of first, because the restructuring and how to make money and how to operate was the norm. And as Kel mentioned earlier, it's usually the founders that laid down the roadmap for values and who we are and how we operate. So it's a natural thing, I think, as a lot of newness comes in, managing change. Again, if you don't put values as a priority, it tends to get put aside. So that's been my experience as well.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what about this guy, guys? Clue number 3 that I have is, let's think of some examples of when rules become tools. Now, of course, being trained in business, sometimes there are these little nuanced challenges that they don't necessarily, say teach you. You kind of learn those through experience. So let's say that if you are a company and you never established any kind of policies, procedures, disciplinary actions, or anything like that, because you started out as a family company and stuff like that. But now you've grown to the point where you got strangers that are applying for jobs. you maybe 10 to 20 employees and stuff like that. And here, lo and behold, eventually you have this person, and let's say you're in a state where things are very regulated. Let's like California, right? Where employees, of course, have, it's more difficult sometimes in certain industries to say, just let an employee go. We in Nevada here, we're at will state. So employer or employee can quit at any time with no reason, no repercussions or anything like that, void of a contract, right? So you can just say, F you, I'm out of here, or F you, you get out of here, either one of those. And so, but those situations don't always exist. So if you as say an ownership team, management team said, hey, we can get in trouble if we just let this person go. So let's learn from this. Let's establish policies and procedures, disciplinary recourse to where classic thing, 3 strikes and you're out. First time's verbal, second time's written, third time you're out of here, right? And so that's one way that I first just kind of top of my head think of when rules can become tools. And it can be used for the benefit of the company and the employees, but you can also make some rules for tools
Absolutely.
that are counter. You know what I mean?
You can,
And
absolutely.
so, yeah. So anything come to mind?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought I could tap into a couple.
Rules are a matrix, and clearly they're necessary, but they can very easily be created and implemented to corral people, to force people into behavior.
Right.
Where they have the illusion of freedom or choice or autonomy, but it's really not there. It's a prison.
Yeah,
it can become a prison, and a lot of companies do that. High production,
or I mean, another classic one I think of, right? Let's say there's a change of ownership or management. Right. So they come in, and let's say that again, they can't come in and just fire. They have to find some sort of cause. And so they'll, again, make new rules that
eliminate a certain tier. I've seen that too. I actually got screwed by that in 2008.
Yeah.
I lost my IT career because of it. They changed. What happened was when everything took crap in IT, a recruiter would put a job rec out and get 2,000 resumes in the first hour. So in order to eliminate, just figure out who to talk to,
right.
To give themselves, a way to see through all this, they started requiring college degrees, and that instantly shut me out. Nobody would even talk to me. Just delete.
Yeah.
You have a degree? No. Click. So I that was it. I mean, I knew there was just no coming back from that. And I was in Dallas at the time, which was a big IT center, and I couldn't find anything. And that's when I became a licensed massage therapist. But which was amazing. I finally figured out what I really wanted to do when I grew up at 40 and then got crippled out of it. But yeah, I have absolutely seen that where,
Yeah. Oh yeah. They use rules. What about you, Art? Any points of reference on that where you'll make rules to kind of weed people out or?
Oh yeah. Rules they're definitely tools, but they really need to be understood and how they're applied. I remember also with the same company, we had heard rumors that there were hidden cameras being installed into production areas, and sure enough, they were found out. I remember talking to, and I was a production person at the time. I remember talking to the plant manager because he was pretty upset. They had found stuff, that was legit, and I said, Jerry, the problem with this is you just reinforce what a lot of people already thought. They're the suspicious ones. And you're assuming that the people that are monitoring the cameras are the good people. So they don't need to be monitored. And this is a big corporation. So you're really isolating a group of people to say they are the ones that need to be monitored because they're beneath us. And he was not ready for this conversation at all. But that's what happens when you get empowered and you begin to rule over others. You have to be careful that everybody is safe. Everybody has the rules applied evenly and in such a way that everybody's safe.
Now here's what I'm thinking, Art, and thank you for that. So here's what I'm saying. Like employee theft is real. And so if they're through inventory management or whatever, if they're saying, where the hell is this stuff going? Right? Like we're a warehouse. We don't even have customers, so we can't blame it on customer theft. So, but a way to go about that like you said, instead of like getting this gotcha moment and stuff like that, through transparency, the little clue number 4 that I have here before we move on is when sometimes what you're talking about is when this internal harm that happened here in your example, it gets reframed, as something that they did, something noble that they did, or something necessary. Just like, hey, we're losing 10% a year. That amounts to this. There's, people that have profit sharing and stuff like that. That's effective. So we have to get a handle on this. But I'm thinking again, what would I do if I was in a management meeting on this right here? I would like to think that I'd probably bring something like this up, and then say, let's give everybody an opportunity not to fail. Let's in the next company meeting, let's bring this up. It's just like, hey fam, here's what's going on. There's, the last thing we want to do is start pointing fingers, right? And suspecting somebody when somebody else is doing something, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to install cameras. And so if you're sitting there and if you're one of the person doing that, no harm, no foul. What we've already lost, we write off, as a loss and stuff like that, but we can't keep doing it. So if you're doing it, these cameras are going to be installed by this date right here. And if you keep doing it, you're going to get caught. So what would you say to that approach right there from an employee standpoint? How would they view that?
You're asking me, Greg? That's kind of normally the direction it should be gone. Everybody should be involved in the process of taking care and taking ownership of the corporation. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, but that's not the should be way is not what you conveyed, right? They just did it. And so,
yes,
I think go ahead.
You can either lead by influence or fear and intimidation. I mean, there's not a whole lot of ground. Either you influence through creativity and trust and development of staff, or you control with monitoring and fear and measurement. Not that measurement isn't important, because we know that what gets measured gets done. But it's the method of the tools. The tools should be for everybody. Again, this is my thinking. I like to trust and empower staff. I know that's also a choice, and I know it comes with risk. But if indeed the tools fit the environment and the culture and the corporation, then they're going to do what they're designed to do, and no more and no less.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good stuff. So just to recap, if you're finding these little, again, clues, just be aware, because then you're going to have to tap into like what your values are. Right. And so if it's not a big deal, these changes, that are being made or whatever, that's one thing. But I was told one time that a job, Kel loves acronyms, job stands for just over broke. And every job is a temporary situation until something else comes along. Something else better, comes along.
Or the company.
Yeah, because the company has a bottom line, and there's very few. I would like to know who, as far as like the owner, because they're the ones that put all the risk, out there and stuff like that. And so I think most people would agree, yeah, they deserve to make more, as kind of like the captain of the ship that provides the employment, for all these people, and hopefully benefits and things like that. And I wouldn't begrudge, I think sometimes, especially in the corporate world, some CEOs and, they how can a guy make, say, $300 something million, and then the employees don't even have, the benefits.
Don't even freaking get me started.
I know. So that's what I'm saying. Because we're talking about values, right?
Right.
So, but so let's move on. So let me ask both of you, Kel, you go first. When Diaz said that values erode, okay, from your experience, what's the first tiny crack that you usually notice? When there's been either a supervisor or an owner or whatever, when you say, okay, this is a little bit different than when I signed up. There's things that are changing here. What's the first kind of tiny crack that you see
that indicates something like this is going on?
Yeah.
Behavior. You'll start to see little escalations places. As people feel something's going on, but they don't quite know what it is. You'll start seeing little behavioral issues start popping up. Somebody starts coming in a little later that's usually on time, or takes a little too long for lunch, or is absent, starts taking their vacation that they didn't before. You start to see little
Not as much support.
not as much
Or-
support.
right.
Morale,
Right.
morale drops.
Right.
People who are typically collegial and hang out together stop fraternizing.
What about you, Art? Is there kind of a moment in your experience where you've seen that moment where people should be paying attention to things like this, but they don't? They're kind of blind. They got their blinders on.
Yeah, I think when we understand that values are to help protect society, they're there meant to ensure the safety and well-being of everyone involved, but it involves cooperation and collaboration. And when you begin to see little by little the lack thereof of the commitment from top to down, inside out, and you see other options being exercised, that's a red flag if those values are important to maintain the well-being of that society, that community, that economy, that organization, that home. You'll see it in a home, you'll see it in a neighborhood, and you'll see it in the city. And of course, then you'll begin to see it in a county, in a country, in a state, etc.
You know what's fascinating about all this, you guys, is that, of course, values are not necessarily subjective, but they are different, right? And so, like, the values are not universal, for everybody. So how difficult is it to find a place where the values are all shared? They're truly shared, right? What a challenge that is, because they'll always have this diversity and stuff. And so is it a reality, I guess?
No. Well, here's the thing. We had all these DEI programs, diversity, inclusion, evolution, all this, yay, everybody, all these mixed, personalities and types and mindsets and neurodivergence and blah, blah, blah. Wonderful. Everybody's wonderful. And it's a mess. Yeah. It's a nightmare. Diversity doesn't work. You want homogeneity. You want people who are on the same page, who have the same mindset. Now, you don't want the same personalities.
I believe you have my stapler.
But you want mindset-wise, you want people that buy into what you're doing. DEI is completely against that.
Kel said that they're creating a mess, and it made me think. Last week when we were talking about what were we talking about last week? What was the matter with? Well, we were talking about a point of reference that she made when she said that all men are created equal.
Oh, right. And she said really just procreated equal.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole crux of that statement simply means we all are created by virtue of a sperm and an egg coming together. Period. End of story.
And that's the mess that I was referring to.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, man. So now let me ask you this, Art and Kel, both of you guys give me your feedback on this, because there is a difference, but it's kind of close, and you guys will get this. So knowing that values aren't universal, what's the difference between values and morality? Because they are different, but sometimes they intersect. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely they do. Absolutely they do.
So what's the difference? How can you define the difference? Because I was thinking about this. I'm like, that's, it's kind of obvious, because you could, what's the difference between, say, a guy that cheats on, or a spouse that cheats on their other spouse, and a person that doesn't, right? Is that a value based, or is that morality? Most people say that's really
it's
morals.
Values based. Morals are the action. Values are the format. Values are the structure. Morality is the expression.
Right. What if somebody had so much money, though, they didn't care? Like, just like, hey, I'm on my 6th divorce. I have so much money.
They lack morals in that situation.
But what if it's a value-based thing?
Well,
you see what I'm saying?
Morals are...
Because to them, it's just all about the money.
Right.
They didn't get into the marriage because of morals.
Well, right. So, I mean, morals don't even come into play in a lot of cases. Yeah.
So, but in that same example, I mean, the act is the act. And then because of a situation, he's truly not doing anything immoral in his own eye. It's just a value-based thing, right? And that's maybe an absurd example. But what I'm trying to say is, and point out, is these things do intersect.
Sure.
There's a difference between having values and morals.
Morals are kind of like,
I guess what I'm saying is sometimes
ideal.
I guess what I'm saying is sometimes a person with different morals, will with It's so subjective because some people
Morals are what they are. Values
Yeah.
are what's subjective. Morals are what they are. Morals are social maxims that we all
That's what I was
collectively
gonna
agree, kind of the golden rule. You know, we all agree that the best behavior is to treat others like you would be treated, you know, be reciprocate, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
you know, all the tenets of that.
So that you hit
So
it right
that's
there.
kind of like a societal construct that we collectively
You hit it right there. So that's the difference, right? Because the
Understand.
morality is more of an understood social contract that we have with each other, and values. We all kind of
That's a-
understand that, hey, you be you, I'll be me, and then we'll just
We all
kind
value
of
different
we're
things.
going to dissect if we mesh or not,
Mhm.
right? I think we just hit something
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
What do you
that's a good
think? What do you think about that, Art? What just happened with that craziness we just went through?
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
I'd say it's safe to say that morals kind of come from values. The morals are kind of, I think I heard Kel say that what you practice, because we have these values, we have these morals in place that we collectively agree on, or at least as a subculture, because these are our values, these are our morals, and this is how we operate.
I like it. I like
it's
it.
like morals are like an operating system.
Well, in that first section there, hopefully we gave, everybody some things to think about, and kind of the, a couple of little insights as far as how to maybe recognize when to leave a job if, some alarms start going off in your head, and things like that. So, moving on, let's see here. Let's see. Oh, hold on just a second here. Art, can you hear that? Is that coming from you?
Sounds like crickets.
It is crickets, so I got a couple of them here for you guys. Okay, so the first thing, again, apologies up front. We try to stay away from, religion, things like that. But, this kind of pertains, to what we're talking about, because there's something in here that says values in this, right? So, imagine Africa, right? There's this priest that goes on a safari in Africa, and he gets separated from the group that he's with, and has a little bit of bad luck of finding himself alone facing a hungry lion. So, basically the priest does what a priest should do in that situation. He breaks down in prayer, right? And he says, "Dear Lord, I haven't asked for much in life, but if this is of thy all-knowing will, please concede me the grace that this lion be imbued with Christian moral and values." And then you know what happened next? The sound of trumpets echoed in the sky. A heavenly beam of light shines upon the lion, who is now able to speak. And you know what the lion says? "Lord, we give thee thanks for this meal that we are about to receive." I'm sorry, Art. We've talked about religion a little bit ourselves. So I was just like, is Art gonna like that one? But he's laughing. So now
I love that one.
Kel's gonna like this one. All right, because this has something to do with making fun of a couple of people. Like the first one is Steve Jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he passed away. How's it been?
Oh, a while ago.
Did you celebrate? No, she smiled though.
I wasn't sad. Let's put it that way.
It's like Mark Twain's quote, just like, "I would never wish a man ill will, but there's a lot of times I read the obituary, with a great smile on my face." So, if
2011, that's what I thought.
if he was alive,
Yeah.
Do you think that, well, actually, I guess this is an assertion that if alive, Steve Jobs would have made a better president than Trump. You know why? I don't know why. It's really comparing apple to oranges.
That's a good one. I like that.
All right, we knocked that one out.
Oh, that's
That's what happened in that movie, my Big Fat Greek Wedding. The Millers, and they were apples and oranges.
oh, that's hilarious.
I love it. Oh, yeah, exactly. All right. So let's go into
Hard to believe he'd be 70.
Oh, you're checking on him. Oh,
He was born in 55.
1955.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the main matter,
Boomer.
though. So let's move on to take this conversation a little bit further. Let's go deep on the erosions and decisions that are kind of made under pressure by both owners and employees. Right. So let's kind of look at this as the mechanics, of the erosion that happens, and kind of create a little backbone here. Let's talk about how transparency which I would think that most employees, if you say, would you like the owners and the managers of the company to be totally transparent with you about everything? Like we used to have a weekly meeting. Now the managers have the weekly meeting. We go over all the financials. That would not go down to the people.
You don't. No, no.
Then
It's none of your business, really.
Yeah. So, but it would give us areas to focus on, right? Here's what we need to focus on. And so the notion of being transparent and how that leads to strategic communication, that's what I want to talk about, right? And so knowing from a business standpoint, Kel, what I'm just laying out here is there has to be a way to communicate with the managers that say filter downstream, so to speak. And if there's any questions of why do I have to do this? The president's going to say, Mr. Divisional Manager, I don't want this shit coming in my office. You handle that. You're the buffer, right? That's your job. Right. Handle all those questions for, everybody kind of like, below the structure.
What would you say you do here?
But the strategic communication that starts with transparency is important. So where's the line between good messaging and communication relating to transparency and manipulation?
And remember, next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day.
Because there's a line.
That's a good question. There's
right?
definitely a line. I think transparency is being honest about the state of the state with the company, like where results are, where the bottom line is. I mean, you don't give specific financials or departmental or anything like that. You don't get that granular, but you can say, hey, profits up, profits down, margins up, margins down, whatever metrics you're using overall, and say, hey, it's not so good. Hey, it's great. I mean, whatever it is. I see a lot of, have seen, I haven't been in corporate in years, but have seen manipulation in the form of saying things are bad when they're not, to put fear in people, expecting them to do better.
Yeah.
And that backfires terribly.
Yeah, like, subtly, say passive aggressively threatening their job.
Right. Just saying, things aren't looking good, and we may have to start, cutting back, or, subtle tendrils of fear that you put through the organization.
I remember
things.
Ted, who used to, the guy that had your job before you, and man, he was great because he would do this, and that. And, I'm going to need you to start just at least doing the same things that Ted did, or.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like, why didn't you train me that in the first place?
Right.
How long has this been? Ted's been gone for what?
But now you're being confrontational. That could cost you your job right there if you push right back.
Tough. I mean,
but that's you though. Like
absolutely.
We're teaching people survival skills
that
here.
bullshit. No, absolutely not. Because this is what happens. You get sucked into bad situations that ruin your health. Corporate America made me chronically ill.
Yeah. Now, but you're not just going to like tell people to quit in the moment. Don't be.
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah.
No. Don't rage quit.
Yeah. Rage quit. Ooh, they got a name for everything.
Yeah.
Art.
Yeah.
So
No,
what about you? Art? What's the
bridges.
line between good messaging and manipulation from a leadership standpoint?
I've seen it all, and I have shook my head sometimes. Some of the things that were coming down at us, because I wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but come on, man. I knew the way my peers were thinking, and it became very obvious what people above me were thinking. And when pressure comes down, it's a little too late to try to make change. You have to prepare for that as a leader. You have to be, understanding that things are going to get uncomfortable. There will be turbulence.
You know what I'm talking about.
But the organization working together should be able to handle most of that.
Well, and that's the other thing. What about when things are inconvenient? And like, what's real transparency look like when things are like inconvenient?
What do you mean inconvenient?
Well, let's say
inconvenient for who?
You just stay over.
Let's say that, there's different divisions in a company, different managers. And let's say that you're not responsible for hiring because you have an HR department.
Right.
Okay. But so far, every candidate that HR has sent you just sucks ass. Right. And then you really like this person in the HR department. You don't want her to get in trouble, or him. you value them and stuff like that, but you know that they're oversensitive, so you can't even go to them and complain about anything, because you've already seen how they respond to complaints.
And maybe
So-
they shouldn't be in that job.
Well, I'm just, you're the one that asked me for an example, so I'm
Yeah,
riffing here. But the transparency part in this case would be, hey, I need for you to help me out, and like, what are you doing when you pick these people? What's the process that you go through where you're able to say, hey, man, you're making my job harder,
Yeah.
right? But you don't want to say have the inconvenience of this person getting pissed off and going up to, the higher ups because she's been there for 25 years. You've only been there for 2. You see what I'm saying? So that's
Politics.
just one.
That's politics. That's corporate politics when you start getting into that, where you're having to worry about tiptoeing around people's feelings. And I have no problem with that. If I see something and somebody's being an obstruction in a department like that, I'll call it out.
Right. Well, and exactly. And I would too. And I guess this is all coming around to say that I put some of these questions together, of course, with the notion that, like, so here's what I would do, or here's what I do. Here's what I was taught.
Yeah.
And again, you might think
And what we were taught is different. Things are a lot different now. So
yeah, but well, listen here. So if I was your boss, and so under that situation right there, I'm just like, hey, Kel, you've been here a long time. I've only been here for a couple years. So the last thing that I want to do is get in trouble with you,
Right?
Because I value you, but I'm struggling with finding a way to convey, to you without getting into how you do your job. That these candidates that have been coming down, they're a waste of time. They're a waste of time.
That's a retraining issue, I think.
Or at least
realignment.
Say, is there any way that we can kind of collaborate? I don't want to step on your toes, but is there any way that I can kind of define what it is that I'm looking for, so that way you could be a little bit more discerning?
Yeah, that's perfect.
And if there was somebody that I was in charge of, right, then and if they are sensitive, they're oversensitive or whatever, then I would my go-to art related to sports. And I would say, hey, I apologize up front if you're not into sports or anything like that, but this is always my go-to when I'm trying to convey this message right here, is that, I have a background, but, football, baseball. So let's pick football, because that's a big team. You're talking 50-something players. You got, say, 9 coaches on the sideline. You got all the support staff, the trainers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so you're probably approaching 80 people, right? And so everybody that week, okay, there's only 11 people that are on the field at any one given time out of 80-something people, right? They're getting all of the, all the glory and all the attention and all that stuff, the ones that are on the field. Now, you don't see it, okay, but those people, like we all do, prepare a lot when you don't see that, right?
Absolutely.
They
Practice.
They eat right. Yeah, they're running in the morning when you're still sleeping and all these different things. And so assuming that that's true for our company, what I'm needing for you to do as like just say it. I'm like, say, one of the 11 that are on the field that's responsible for the outcome of the game.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you're any less important than I am.
Right.
And I need you, in order for us to perform on the field, I need you to do this task right here consistently and to the best of your ability. That's the way that I would probably.
That's a great approach.
You know what I'm saying? And that was always my go-to.
That's excellent.
So Art, you want to come to work for me?
I want to come to work with you.
That's a good distinction. I like that. So let's see. So we mentioned kind of red flags, right? Again, I think I have more respect for. It's kind of like I was taught that don't ever ask anybody to do something that you either haven't done or you're not willing to do right now.
Yep.
Never be afraid of a broom or a mop. Those types of things. I helped out, one of our buddies for the beer fest, that was in October. So I'm, 62 years old, and I was up there early. It took me 2 days of rest afterwards, but I threw down with those guys, lugging the crates around as much as I could and stuff like that, so,
the same way.
You gotta, there's something to that.
Big time. I've always been a deep trencher. My bosses. Speaking of which, my boss at Just in Time Tux, Kathleen Hanley, is listening to us online. She is amazing. This is such a great discussion to talk about her, because she is such a great founder, owner, leader and boss. I mean, the way she runs the company and with our team is so open, transparent, on like she's all about transparency. And I mean, there's only 5 of us, so we get to hear, the full 360.
Well, man, let's give her a plug real quick. If anybody's in the Reno Sparks area, what's the name of the company?
It's Just in Time Tux. We are located in the Sparks Florist building at the corner of Pyramid and Oddie, and we are by appointment. And you can check us out on the web, justintimetux.com.
Woohoo. Hey, thanks for listening,
Any
Kathleen.
formal wear needs you need for your men. If you want to look good, you come see us.
Yeah. Hey, Kathleen, Kel deserves a raise. No, I'm just kidding. Just teasing.
We do great.
So now speaking of that, so when the leader's not like able or willing to throw down, right? And so are there red flags when leaders kind of exempt themselves? It's like, hey, I'd like to do this with you guys, but company policy prevents me from like hanging out with people on the weekends because I'm in management.
Well, that's a little different. That's possible.
Yeah.
Some companies do have those policies. I understand them to a point, at certain levels.
Depends on what the industry
Depends on what the industry is, and it depends on the level of all of the staff. Like if you've got a major diversity from janitorial warehouse all the way up to CEO, C-suite, that's one thing. But if you're like kind of a startup-y, more holistic type company with small group, that can be more.
Yeah, there's companies that have policies like you can't date.
Right. That's very common. In big companies, you can't fraternize with the staff.
I would think I would do something like this. I would do something just like, hey,
look at the Coldplay couple.
I was going to talk about that. Yeah. So we can talk about that right now because here's what I would do. Now that was a little different situation, of course, as we found out, but I would probably say, hey, so here's the company policy on mingling after hours. We know that friendships can be made and stuff like that. So here's the deal. Like if we find out, okay, without you letting us know, signing this form, right, that you're going out as a manager with your employees, it doesn't matter, golf, drinks, whatever, you're going to lose your job. That's a terminable offense. Now, if you say, I want to go out, all we need to do is have you sign a waiver of sexual harassment, or something that covers all these things that you're not going to hold the company liable.
That makes yeah. See, that's where the problems lie. It's the liability. It's not so much the fact that relationships or whatever. It's potential liability because you could get that one employee that gets butt hurt because the boss dumped them or whatever, and it's the coach from my boys, the University of Michigan, that's what happened. The head coach was having an affair with, he's married, had kids, and having an affair with one of the staff members. So she finally blows the whistle on him, and he freaks out. That's bull. I mean, cheating is just cut. Like I don't care who it's with. If it's with an employee or whatever, that's just. That speaks to your moral character.
That's what
it would make me question.
What's the show on What's the Matter with Cheating?
Okay.
That'd be a good one.
That'd be a real good one.
Yeah.
Real good one.
Yeah.
In every sphere, not just in relationships, but it
used to cheat at baseball. Ooh. Yeah. I know he's throwing spitballs, man. The dude, he struck out everybody.
Cork bat. No, it's cheating to me would make me question the person in general.
Yes.
Especially with an employee. I mean, that really makes
that's for sure a moral thing.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Unless you have an agreement with whoever you got married to, because there are open relationships, but
assuming this isn't.
Yeah.
Assuming this is a cheating situation, it would make me.
Now, how do you correct, again, these red flags in the setting, a work setting, without turning into the culture police, right? Like, so let's say, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
because we're all sensitive to that. We've been beat up last 2 years, this cancel culture thing.
Big time. I mean,
you can't even joke around. There was a while there you can't even joke around.
Well, I mean, back in the day, sexual harassment was a given.
Yeah.
I mean,
those are called the good old days.
I mean, I worked in male-dominated industries my whole corporate career. So, I mean, I was gender sexually harassed. I was sexually harassed. It was constant. And I called it, you fuck with me, I fuck back. And
as hard as it is to believe, I've been sexually harassed too.
Yeah.
In the workplace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It goes both ways.
Not so much in the last 20 years, but
Probably, but
Yeah.
back when we were young,
oh yeah,
it was rampant.
I was on fire in my 20s.
I mean, it was in the movies, for God's sake. I mean, it was just, yeah, that, and I think that's where a lot of these policies came from, is
No
because
sunlight locker.
it created liability.
Oh yeah,
You know,
making
because
me flashback. I'm gonna get in trouble. I used to, man, we used to like, you poor girls. I don't
Yeah.
know. Back in the days, you know, it's kind of like we did some things just unknowingly. We just didn't know any better because they were kind
Because
of
it was conditioning. That's just how
like
that's how it was.
you know.
Absolutely. Women
But,
have been conditioned to be subservient to the patriarchy
Yeah.
since time immemorial, and it's changing now. And that's the interesting thing, because men aren't handling it well, because we fuck back.
We've been told in big ways and in small ways for our whole lives that the achievements of men are much more important than the achievements of women. Well, forget that. Forget that.
Hey, what's the difference between having these really good grounded principles in a business and then having these kind of weaponized policies?
That's a good way to put it.
I know, and it's kind of like there's an obvious difference, I guess.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, and you
between
can see
grounded
it's
principles.
pretty clear.
Policy, yeah.
It's pretty clear when companies start weaponizing policy.
Now we know how Kel, you know, bounces when policies are used to punish people instead of guide behavior.
Yeah.
Right. She's like, I'm out of here.
Yep.
Are you the same way, Art? You know, you're retired now, but were you kind of like one of those where,
It's
you know,
one
how do you
self-employed.
handle that? How would you, or did you handle that situation? If
Well, like I said, I've seen just about every type of leadership style, and a lot of it is because of my age. And then I've worked for two big corporations, one of them being government as well. You know, it depends on the situation. Is this somebody who's having a bad day and applying a rule, not so much the rule, but the attitude and the enforcement, or it's not a popular employee, so that they're getting really heavy-handed because of that? I mean, there's so many ways to look at it, but I think ultimately these things are a reflection on the philosophy of the top management leadership or the ownership. You have to have a philosophy, and a lot of that really comes down to how do you see your staff? Are they a problem or a solution?
Great point.
If they're a problem, you're going to manage them. And nobody likes to be managed.
Yeah.
You're going to rule them. If they're a solution, you're going to develop them. You're going to make sure they're equipped. You're going to make sure that they see themselves as a solution, and where they see an opportunity, speak up and have a path towards the ability to be successful and move upward. I like profit sharing. I think that's a great approach as well, where everybody gets a hit from the profit. But I'm a big believer, if you're going to be on my team, like any good coach, I'm going to make sure that you have every opportunity to develop and be better.
Yeah, and that's a good hit. And Kel, you know, mentioned something about training earlier, and you know, it's probably like in my early 30s, before it was brought to my attention. From a hiring standpoint, I was looking for all these people like me, right? That just like top 5 to 20%, you know, the go-getters and, you know, intelligent, articulate, they cared about customer service and all these things. And you know, the consultant, you know, he says, well, he goes, you don't understand what your job is as an owner. And I'm like, well, do tell. And he says, well, he goes, you said it yourself. He goes, you're looking for the 20%. So you're eliminating 80 to 95% of the people out there. Because your job as a manager, okay, is to find capable people, and it's your responsibility to train them to what you need to run the business. That's on you. And I left that meeting. It changed. That was a really big day. Yeah. Big eye opener, to where really that's what it comes down to. And that's where coaching, you know, you just kind of realize, you know, okay, well, this is what like I like doing anyway. I really like doing it in sports, you know, but there's only, you know, so many of those head coaching jobs out there. And you know, it is a grueling occupation too. People don't understand, the higher you move up in the schools, especially from high school to college, the time that they call coaches' wives coaches, because they're just always down there.
Yep.
I mean, there's story after story about coaches, of course, that sleep down the complex and stuff like that. Just makes more sense from them from a time standpoint. But I digress.
I want winners. I want people that want to win.
So let's look at moving on here, guys. Kind of like this, continue with this perspective split, between the classic owners versus employees, right? Management versus the hired help and stuff like that. And so staying with values here, how do you prove value in your hiring, firing, promotions, pricing, customer boundaries, all these different things? Like there's no universal way.
But
what's a good grounded value that you have?
Well, primarily it's walk your talk.
No,
whatever it is, whatever you say your values are or that you believe in or your quality level or whatever, match it.
That is awesome right there.
Everything else is propaganda.
It goes back again. Some of that old school stuff is that you just don't say anything. You don't say anything that you
can't back
that you can't back
Yeah.
up. Don't commit to anything that you know. And if something happens to where you realize, hey, I'm not going to be able to fulfill this promise,
Speak up.
proactively call that person and say, hey, I am so sorry, but
and have a solution. Have ideas to give them. I'm not going to be able to make it. I've got some other friends we can bring in on this. Let me pay somebody, or if it's something like going to be a financial loss, and you need to make up the difference or whatever. Just whatever it is, have suggestions. Give them options. Don't just say, "Oh, I can't do this. Sorry."
And we already talked about this kind of the values that companies claim. That's almost always fake.
Right.
Unless it actually has some actual teeth in it. Have you experienced what's your go-to company where you say, hey, I can always count on them if I have any kind of complaints at all? They go over and above.
Amazon.
Really?
Oh, Amazon's amazing.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I agree with that.
Oh yeah.
You too, Art?
They've been good. It's not easy to work with them because getting to the problem can be a challenge, but they want happy customers.
Yeah, they really do. If you're a Prime member, they bend over backwards.
Have you guys heard of companies that do these things called values audit?
I've heard of that. I don't know any particularly off the top of my head.
Search it real quick.
But I know
Search
what it
it
is.
real
Yeah,
quick. I would think I haven't researched this either, but again, just kind of like, of course, taking stock, taking inventory of the things that you say as a company, and then having some sort of systematic way to check on that. And I can only imagine that it's probably done through, say, employee surveys, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where does the company stack up?
Yeah, there's
after your experience with,
yeah.
things like that. Have you heard of things like that, Art? Do you think they're a good idea?
I think they're a great idea, depending on the environment, the culture. The tools work great in certain environments, not so good in others.
That's true. It wouldn't work in a strip club, huh? Maybe that's the one they should have a moral audit on.
I really believe in trying to catch your staff doing something good, doing something right, acknowledge them, reward them. Otherwise, you're going to catch them doing wrong. And I find that the positive reinforcement works best. That's where your focus is going to be. Not totally ignoring bad behavior, but addressing that in a private way and knowing that there's a lot of respect there and an opportunity for staff to turn things around. And there's, there should be respect and autonomy there. But I like to catch people doing something right and tell me that you did a hell of a job that last project, to your budget, you're developing your staff, all those things. When people hear that they're going in the right direction, then they feel not just understood and valued, but also they feel like they're being supported, and that's huge.
Oh yeah, that can put skyrockets under people if just the right recognition, the right well-placed comment, or noticing.
What's that commercial? I can't remember the name of the actor, but he's kind of like the CEO traipsing through the corporate office and stuff like that. And they're like, how does this guy know everything? He knows all this, the things with his employees and stuff like that. It's a commercial about an app. But then he kind of gets this ding, and he reads it, and he turns back around, and then there's some employees at the table, and he's just like, hey, Pat. And there's this lady sitting at the end. She kind of like looks up, just like, hey, Pat, 2-year anniversary coming up. Make sure you keep doing a good job. You're fantastic. Just the smile that she broke out with. That's worth watching the commercial. Just that beaming smile.
Wow, yeah.
And so it's just that moment of recognition out of the blue. How did he know that? It was kind of like, and so
That really-
you're keeping track of your employees, whether it's the birthdays or,
It's
hey, her little Johnny got a home run. You know what I mean?
And the amount of commitment you can get from somebody just by some little personal acknowledgement over and above, you know, good job, that, that kind of thing, whatever. But, something like, hey,
standout. The leaders like that, for sure, because that takes effort because they're busy in their life too. They're running a company and things like that. And so the things that it says without saying it. Right. I love stuff like that.
I do too.
So lightning round, Kel, let me set up our little air horn here. Okay. Lightning round here. So you're going to have 30 seconds. Okay. I got 4 here. So I'll do the 2 for you, 2 for Art. So first one is, when you feel values drifting, what's your smartest first move? Is it to ask a question, document it, start finding some allies, or are you just like, I'm out of here? So what's your first move when you feel values drifting, and why?
Who first?
You.
Me? I would start documenting, definitely.
So that's your first move.
My first move is, as I notice, I'll immediately, start to feel, what's going on. So I'll start to document specific instances,
days, times,
people, names, and just kind of keep that under my belt and watch what happens and see if management notices or, what's going on.
Yeah. Cause if they do, then you just,
if they do, then
they're on it. Yeah,
they're on it. They know it's up. That's cool.
Yeah.
But if not, if it's a, more heads down type organization, I'll document it and then probably quietly bring it up to my manager, whoever my direct is.
So you go to your manager first, not any peers. So you don't do the crabs in the bucket, start complaining stuff and just like, just like, I hate it when they do this.
No. I mean, I might say, geez, I noticed this is going on. What's up with that?
They ran out.
But I might, question things and see if other people are aware, but I wouldn't, start bitching about stuff.
I know. I did the same thing one day when they ran out of toilet paper. Okay. Now
in the office.
Now, what about you, Art, big, strong man? How do you challenge leadership respectfully without becoming a target?
That's the tap dance.
I've had to do it, and I'll tell you what.
How do you do it? How do you do it?
Very, very carefully. Stay on the side of the solution. You want to stay on their side. You do not want to separate yourself or challenge them. You want to take and make the conversation that needs to happen. That's so critical. And if you don't have that, then you don't have anything, because everything comes from conversation. Everything comes from mutual understanding. Typically, something as big as value starting to erode, there was other signs, maybe people coming in whose priority was not the values. So there was probably going to be signs already happening. So I would certainly ask myself, do I belong here now? Or is my time here, going to be, done? And should I be elsewhere? But I would, especially a company that's been good to me, I would try to offer a help if I can in some way, because I did that. Our communication was terrible. There really was no communication between, the staff and the upper management at the big corporation. It all trickled down, and the attitudes of some of the people that were above us, I mean, they weren't happy to be there. So, it got really tough. So I did try to meet with the plant manager a couple of times, and then my supervisor got wind of it, and boy, did I pay the price for that.
Yeah, because you went over his head, huh?
Yeah, I even had other older peers tell me what's my problem. And, that's not the way things work. If you've got a problem, you need to go up the chain of command. To which I pushed back and said, I actually don't have a problem. I was just asking some questions for my.
Oh, good comeback! Good comeback. Hey, it's a good thing you weren't a cop, man. It works like that too. Hey, so Art, what's the difference? Let's say now you're in management, as you've been, and so there's say again just some the actions of the business entity is not matching the values that they are conveying. So what's the difference, or what's the turning point also between being loyal to your company? especially if you're relying on the income, you've got responsibilities, wife, kids, mortgage, and all that stuff, right? So you just don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. But what's the difference between being loyal in that sense and then being complicit in,
That's a good question,
like degrading these values that you're supposed to stand by? Tough question for sure, but how would you throw around that one?
Tough questions for sure. And again, I want to be a part of the solution. And so one of the things that I have found very, very valuable, here's a tool. Here's a tool. Make you be the one to help me. In other words, you're my supervisor, you're the boss, you're the plant manager. And I come to you with a big concern and ask you, hey, what should I do here?
Yeah, what would you do if you were me?
Exactly. When you incorporate them, of course they like that. Also, they don't feel like you're a threat to them, because if you're threatening in some way, you could cause trouble for them if you're popular staff, etc. But I like to ask them, hey, what do I do here? What would you do if you're in this situation? And that's a great question to ask, because you're going to hear their heart. Yeah, makes sense.
Oh yeah, I like it. And and you can even couch it even more in that regard by, you're talking like, say, the owner of the company, and just like, hey, Bob, I know and feel that you want me to succeed. I know that. And so, but I'm having a challenge coming up with a way to succeed because of reason X, Y, and Z. So if you were me, what would you do? Because I want to follow your leadership.
Yeah, I like that, because it challenges them at the heart. And when you're challenging somebody's heart, it gets down to their character. It's not a head game anymore, where you're just kind of throwing back ideas and see who can win the
performance.
match.
And it kind of forces them to take ownership of being owner.
Right.
Thank you.
And I'm giving them that
good.
opportunity to train me, which is what I just got through talking about. That's actually your job, bro. So I'm asking you for a little help here. I like it. Kel, last question. If you work for someone else, how do you protect your own values without becoming cynical, about, say, your job situation? You see what I'm saying? If it's, because sometimes there's this conflicting values
Absolutely.
based on the things that you need versus the things that you want.
Sure.
And sometimes that can get blurry.
Absolutely,
right?
it can.
Yeah. So speak on that.
It's
How to protect your own values without becoming cynical.
Be well aware of what you're walking into, first of all. Don't go in some new job like it's a new relationship and you're all in the honeymoon phase and it's all lovey-dovey and everything's wonderful and this is great. And then 5 months down the road, you now see under the hood, and it's not what they promised you, or things have degraded. You have to be secure within yourself to know what your boundaries are.
Kind of, what's your evaluation period? About 6 months? Would you say 6 months to a year?
Yeah, I would say 6 months is probably a good, good time period, 6 to 9 months. And it's, because that gives you time to get over your initial excitement and performance and settle into yourself and who you are. And you start to realize, who everybody is around you and who you're safe being and who you're not safe being and what to hide and what not to. And that's a real dance. And a lot of people, I haven't been in corporate in years, but I would be very curious if I were to go into corporate today and try to deal with these kids, because they were not raised with the same ethic we have at all.
It's going to be interesting, the apprenticeship program.
It's going to be very interesting.
I've been 13 years, since I've been in like the high school setting. So.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see, as how the world is changing, because Gen X we're the adults in the room now, whether we realize it or not, and we are now in those positions of leadership where, and that's been like a quick flip. Like it's kind of been all of a sudden, we've been under the thumb, and now all of a sudden, shit, we've got to take over. And we're trying to figure that out, because we were raised with crack the whip, get to work, sit down, shut up. And we're trying not to put that down beneath us. And now we're seeing the need to.
Yeah, that's all fear-based stuff, right?
And we're trying to tap dance between how do we put that same authority without that control,
right?
And sometimes you can't. Like sometimes you just can't. So you have to be the heavy. You have to say, look, either do this or you're fired. We cannot have you acting this way. I don't care what kind of snowflake you want to act like. I don't care that you got a trophy for showing up. This is reality.
Right.
And we're at a crash. We're at like a, collision point right now with that. And
Right.
things are falling the F apart. Just in IT alone, I'm watching in front of my eyes development and user experience, standards dying, like crashing. There are AIs where, like the chat bots, where you go and you type into the chat, prompt box to tell it what to do. It doesn't have auto capitalize. That is making me insanely furious. Like to the
You guys should have seen her face. She was real.
like you have no idea, as a former development manager, how angry I am with how lax the standards have gotten because it's these kids in charge and there's no oversight.
And they don't, there's of course challenges all over the place, with the basic, reading, writing, and arithmetic. I mean, just the basics.
Basic communication standards.
Necessary or discipline.
Making up stupid words and thinking that that's acceptable in day-to-day parlance. No. And we're the ones that have to enforce these standards and say, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah. You're talking about like, slang language and stuff like
that crap.
So back to values. So like if we looked at like this little, say you started a new job, right? And so not that you're focused on it, but with what we're talking about here, over time, over your 6 months, let's put together this little evidence board that you can kind of decide after 6 months or a year if this is kind of for you, right? So evidence number one is, what are the values and where are they written? Like, is it in a company handbook? Like, if they don't have anything, that's
a red flag.
Evidence,
that's
right?
That's
a red flag.
Oh yeah.
So, but if they have them, in the employee break room or the handbook and things like that,
they're documented
mission
somewhere.
Statement, you know what I mean. Hey, our integrity is our biggest, priority. Things like that. Now
if that didn't come up, this would be a good interview question. If it doesn't come up in the interview and they say, do you have any questions? Yeah. What's your mission, vision, values?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, exactly. I like that. So that, you right in the beginning, you know where your evidence is. So evidence, bullet number 2 is, so number 1, where are the values written? And if you as an employee adhere or excel in these values, where are they rewarded?
Yeah, that's a great point.
What do I get for this? Or for buying into this? Like, is it based on increase in pay? Or is it vacation time? You get 1 week your first year, but after your 3rd year, you go to 2. And if you're here 5 years, you get 4.
Chances are it wouldn't be that.
I'm just throwing out
standardized.
I'm just giving examples.
Everybody, but there should be perks.
Tiable, yes, into, if you do this, it's just look for that for evidence. And also, what's your evidence, kind of in the negative sense, but if you don't adhere to these values, or if somebody else doesn't adhere to these values and you are, that's not fair. And so how do the people that aren't buying into the values, how are they punished? So we got reward, punish, right? So is it, hey, we just let them go. If they're not fitting our culture, if they're not doing their job, we just let them go, cut and dry. Or is it counseling or whatever? You want to find out how they're punished. So where are the values written? Where are they rewarded? Where are they punished? Okay. Now also, life happens, right? And so I don't really want to work for a place that is so black and white. I appreciate black and white, but sometimes you need to be excused.
Some things need to be set in stone and other things need to be flexible.
And it could be a natural one would be bereavement, right? What does that look like?
Yes.
Hey, we only have so much time and personal time off, but if your personal time is used up and then somebody passes away, that, we're not going to trip on that.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, so, you won't be paid for those days, but you can take them off.
And again, what gets excused, this isn't to find something that you could take advantage of,
right?
But you want to find out just like how much do they care about people,
right? What are their their human resource allowances?
And then evidence Number 5, what gets repeated, right? And so this is kind of like to me, a point of compounded interest, but it's value related, because if you have all these good positive values that everybody's buying into, everybody's engaged in, it's manifesting. And so, what gets repeated? Which one of these values gets repeated? Once you identify them, is that a negative value or is that a good positive value?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, kind of give them a report card. What do you guys think about all that stuff? Art?
Oh, I love this stuff. I've been the benefactor of amazing training, Six Sigma, learned how Toyota took, Henry Ford's concept and made some amazing progress whereby the people looking over your shoulder were there to help you make sure that you were successful. So there wasn't somebody standing over you with their arms crossed and waiting for you to do something wrong. They saw themselves as enablers of helping you and making sure that the operation's successful. Gosh, this is a big question. You asked me. This is stuff I'm passionate about. I haven't thought about it in a while, but I love people. And when you love people, you want to see them succeed, but you also have to protect them too, because once a bad apple gets in, it won't take long for that one to start to excuse me, influence the others as well. And so you have to have a plan for that. It's tough because you're leading a lot of individuals. I wouldn't want to be in that situation today. There's a lot of non-battle tested people coming into the workforce now. They've really not faced any real turbulence where the corporation doesn't even know it's going to be there tomorrow. We can make all kinds of plans, but that's dependent upon a good economy and the market that's taking care of that, or there's no major bad press on something that we did in the product line. I mean, there's so many things coming at the corporation. The employee cannot just see himself as somebody that's constantly making demands and more from the corporation. There has to be enough information to satisfy everybody to be able to contribute and do their jobs. But again, I'm a big believer in, man, you're on my team. I want you to be successful. But also, if you're on my team, I want to be able to vote you off my team if you're not being productive too. I seen a corporation that was in Fresno. They did cameras, Pelco, and did a tour there. I had a buddy of mine that was the VP, and they had all the information on what they were producing right in front of them at the end of the line, the quality and the quantity, and they got paid for that. And if you had somebody on the team that just got trained and retrained and couldn't keep up, they voted that person off the line and somewhere else. So there's a lot of psychology. Of course, you got to know psychology.
That's okay. And that's okay too. You know what I mean? It's like, again, there's 50 guys try out for a team and 11, are on the field. So that's life. Sports are metaphors for life, and that's another example right there. So, Kel, tell me about if you could, like, say again, new job, or even checking out a job. So, like, how you got your two source go to. So, if you could look at two places to diagnose a culture of a company really fast, what are they? I mean, how do you do that?
How would I go about it?
Yeah. I mean, is it something where you have to be immersed, where you have to be going through it, because you can check out a website and maybe employee reviews?
Yeah.
Something like
Glassdoor.
Glassdoor. Yeah.
That's a pretty good site for if it's a known company, Glassdoor should have some information. I would do AI searches for sure for reviews, employee comments, corporate culture. I'd create some prompts to kind of gather some data about that.
I was told one time, if you're ever thinking about getting into an industry, company, and if you're able to do it, is to find somebody that's been doing it at least 10 years and then asking them, if you were to do it all over again, would you? Or
that's a good one.
because then they're just like, I thought it was this. you know,
Yeah.
and I found out different.
Like if you know somebody that works at the company or whatever, it would be hard if you're just cold.
Or even if you're there, you know, once you're there for a little while, identify
if you get the job
veteran.
and you've been there for a little bit,
identify
absolutely,
the
I would
veteran.
seek out.
Say, hey, I'm a newbie in this, but
Yeah.
before I spend 10, 20 years like you, like, what are you thinking, man? Give me some advice. Is this the right move?
Mm-hmm.
You know, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some good stuff right
yeah,
there.
that is.
Have you ever walked into an organization, first time job or whatever, and you could like just feel the values mismatched right away?
Oh,
you
gosh,
know,
yeah.
what gives it away first?
Sure.
Like,
You can like, it's the relationships between the employees, like how they interact with each other. And that I can peg people pretty quickly, you know, the ones who,
or that's authentic or clicky.
yes. And, you know, the people who are the ass kissers and the ones who just put their heads down and do their job and leave, the ones who put in extra effort. I can
There's a
pretty
dichotomy.
quick. Yeah.
for
I
sure.
try to, you know, I can figure out.
Now, which
pretty
vibe are you
quickly.
looking for? Like, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for collaborative. I'm
Mhm.
looking for the ones that are like, you know, there are two things that you never say to me in any job.
Take note, Art.
Not my job, and it's because it's the way it's always been done. Don't ever tell me those two things.
Yeah, not my job. Or
You know, if I ask you
It's
to do
always the way
something and
things
it's
have been
within
done.
your capability,
yeah,
you know,
I
don't
gotcha.
ever tell me, oh,
Down
that's
with
not
that.
my job. I'm not doing that. That's not my job. If I've asked you to do it, there's a reason.
right. I'm sure that I have probably said something like that before. I had to. I'm like 62 years old. I'm
But-
sure that I've said something
Oh,
like
I've
that before.
said it like, oh, that's above my pay grade or whatever, but not to someone in
Yeah.
the situation asking me of a request at the time. Like
Yeah.
I've said it off site,
Yeah.
you know, out of a job, not
Right.
still working there anymore, you know, just goofing around. Oh yeah, that's above my pay grade. Oh, that's, you know, that's not my job. But not literally at the job. If someone has asked me to do something
Right.
that's out of, you know,
Well,
the
especially if
typical-
it's your supervisor or boss, you better not say that.
well, that's a whole different ballgame. But I mean, a colleague
Yeah,
or a
right.
team member or project,
exactly.
whatever. You know, if it's within my capability
Right.
and I have the time and can do it, absolutely. Me too.
There's a way that you do ask stuff. I
Sure.
guess there's a difference between asking with a humility, you know,
Right, or
versus
demanding.
asking with expectation.
Of
Yeah,
course.
for sure. Okay. All right, you guys. Hey, what's the verdict right here? So thumbs up or thumbs down, and we'll explain why. Okay. First one, Art. So we're talking about where are the values? Is it in a handbook or whatever? So companies that say put it right on the wall where everybody sees it, everybody walks by it all the time. Is that actually useful, or do you think it's mostly like PR?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Like when they put the company values on the wall by the water cooler or
Yeah.
whatever, is it actually legit, or is it kind of like just PR that, you know?
It depends. It
Mhm.
can be very PR-ish, very for show, you know.
I think it's somewhat useful though, because, you know, if and when you say had to hold the company accountable for the values, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? It's just like, you know, we say that like integrity is important to us, and they're, you know, I have customers complaining that they've left 5 messages in the last 3 days and nobody's calling them back.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So
Oh,
that can be
absolutely.
useful in that situation to hold
Mhm.
your company supervisors accountable.
And they never think of it that way. They always think it's to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
So when you use it against them, they don't like that very much.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
I've
that's
done
one of
it.
those things where you could be a troublemaker though. So, you know, watch out, pick your battles, so to speak.
Well, my question is, are you here for the company or are you here for yourself? Like,
Hey, what's
the end goal here?
What did you find out about that the audit,
Values audit?
values audit? Yeah.
It's basically it's like questionnaire is primarily how it's done. And you know, you basically analyze the data, like core values audit to discover your personal values. Look at the list below. This is usually how it's done. You're given a list of like 100 values and you circle the ones that, you know, pick your top 25 or whatever.
Oh, I got you.
You know,
Okay.
accomplishment, achievement,
almost-
accountability, excellence, love, loyalty,
Almost like a
self-reliance.
personality test.
Very, it stems from the same core.
Yeah. And then of course they put stock in that the employees are going to be honest.
Well,
Yeah,
and
so-
that's the key. 'cause
Sometimes they treat it as a joke, and you've got, you know, some clown in there that says, I'm going to tell them the opposite.
Or you get the
Especially
one
if it's
that's like,
anonymous.
I know what they want to hear, so
Yeah,
you
exactly.
pick the performative ones rather than ones that are true.
Now, Art, let's say that we have this company that shares everything with their employees, like with radical transparency. You know what the operating capital is, what everything's profit, everything's just open. Now, do you think that that is actually a good idea, or would that be kind of like this chaos generator where now you're going to have too many chiefs, too many cooks in the kitchen type of thing where everybody's chiming in because they think they
have
know
authority.
everything. Yeah. They know everything that's going on. Radical transparency, is it a good idea, or is it more of a chaos generator?
I think it's a brilliant idea in some areas and a disaster in others. Can they handle the information?
Yeah.
What are they going to do with it? Is it valuable to them? I mean, if they have open structure and they want to develop people who are more concerned and want to know about numbers and, profits and assets, if they're willing and can handle that, I think it's fantastic, because the more they're aware, then they don't need to be told as much.
Absolutely.
But they need to be able to understand that. Otherwise, they'll take that information and use it against you.
I love it. Got to make note right there. All right, Kel, thumbs up or thumbs down? And so it's a thing called unlimited PTO, personal time off, unlimited, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now this is actually a good little twist here. So on the surface, it would seem like that this is a good value-driven trust, right? We're going to trust you that, hey, you have a job to do, and I don't care how much time you take off, as long as you do your job, right? You're on salary. So if it takes you 10 hours, to do it, and or 40 hours that week, I don't care, as long as the job is done. Now, is that would you look at that as a value-driven trust move, or is it really clever cost control? Because void of a salary, you see what I'm saying? You could say, okay, so you're on hourly, but if I have to pay you less because you do it faster, then they're actually saving money, by them saying you could take as much time off as you want.
Sure. Yeah. If you take time off and you're not getting paid for it.
I guess it would depend on what the business
Totally
model is.
depends. Totally depends.
But I like actually both thoughts.
Yeah.
That has
I've known
a
of a
unique business model.
It is. It really is, and it's very small. Usually, it's for very small companies, small, intimate, project-driven type companies. And I've heard of several companies that have that offer, and nobody ever takes it because they're so into the projects and they're so critical. Everybody's such an important piece.
And plus too, when you take time off, that costs money. Like, you normally take time off, you're not sitting on the couch watching Netflix. You're going to go do something.
That's
You're
true too.
traveling,
Usually,
something like
reason.
that. So, all right, Art, thumbs up or thumbs down on culture fit hiring, right? Is this necessary, or is it kind of just this code, for sameness? I'd like to think, of course, same type of thing. Different industries require different diversities, and it doesn't have anything to do with skin color, right? But we all know that there are cultural fits in certain situations that are possibly a bad idea. And so, like, without straddling the fence, what you're never hired somebody or never thought about hiring somebody because of the color of their skin.
Never.
It's just never happened.
It doesn't occur to me. It's who's the best person for the job.
But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Oh, absolutely. It
happens all the time.
We have massive laws and education around it in corporate America because the stupidity happens.
Yeah. There's
always
you're not supposed to discriminate, but it happens all day, every day.
Well, and sometimes those policies have been used that were supposed to be anti-discrimination have been used to discriminate. It's crazy.
And I guess I should articulate this when I'm talking about a culture. I'm not necessarily talking about an ethnicity, right? A culture, especially based on the conversation we're having today, relating to values, right? And so I guess the question is there a vetting, like when you know that you want a certain type of culture, let's say, hey, I need people that are punctual. I need them to treat their job seriously, reliability and all these different things. And then having a vetting process where they fit that type of culture. Okay. Is that necessary? Or is it just this kind of like code where, hey, we have to do this the way we've done business all the time. We're looking for this type of person, and you really don't like expand your scope, outside of what you've done up to that point. Does that make sense? Did I summarize that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, race is not the challenge. It's culture. I got a good one to share with you. I had a couple of very strong Hispanic females that worked for me, and I love them because you weren't going to come in on the team and do something that wasn't right, because they were preparing mail to go through the post office, and it could get rejected and they'd have to send it all the way back. Whenever I was interviewing a Hispanic young male, especially, I'd say, look, if you got a problem being told what to do by another female, and in particular Hispanic
Especially
female,
Hispanic.
you're not going
to last here.
You're not going to like it here, because these girls want to make sure it's going to get done right. So if you got a problem there, don't come here. Now, if you got ideas, fine, come share them with me after you've been here for a while and start kind of getting the ropes. But you are coming into this culture, and this culture is whoever has the best ideas, the best processes, the most training and the responsibility. They have the authority to make decisions. And some of them kind of looked at me kind of funny, because they really, I can see they really weren't sure. But all too often, somebody's in an interview, they go, oh yeah, no, I can get along with anybody. But
right.
it's not really answering.
See, I probably would have went Freudian in that interview right there. I would have said, hey, so we've got, some mamacitas, on the payroll, and they're very strong women. So tell me about your experience with their mother. I'd go all Freudian on.
Oh, Elaine, I loved having Elaine on the floor, because she always had her eye out for me. She was just a natural leader as well. Now, if she heard me say that, she laughed, because she didn't realize what a leader and an influence she was on the floor. It was definitely something I had to kind of bring out after bringing a couple of guys in that you could tell they felt like they were just getting their nose rubbed in the crap. And then I realized, oh, these guys, they're not used to that. And I was not going to change Elaine, because she protected us from making.
Yeah, what were you guys celebrating last night?
I'm not really at liberty to talk about it.
But again, it's a cultural thing.
Yep.
And I think it's very, very important, because culture really determines behavior. And once they come on the team, it's hard to change a culture unless you got a really, really good one.
Exactly.
And it's kind of a subculture. It's a subculture when you walk into a team, and you might come from the ghetto, but you walk into a subculture that's dynamite. But yeah, that's why I say absolutely. But it has to be strategic.
Yeah. And you have to be, you as a manager really have to be culturally aware. If you've got that kind of ethnic diversity on your team or in your company or whatever, you can't just expect that, you have this all-inclusive culture, and, everybody knows their hierarchy and knows their place, and just, okay, she's my boss, I'm this person, whatever. You get some little Banny in there that, Bantam Rooster, who thinks he's, whatever, however he was raised. And, now he has to listen to some woman. I mean, you have to be aware that those dynamics can exist. I mean, that's, we're not going to change that,
Correct.
It's like that.
The other thing that really is important here is that my staff was depending upon me to bring in good products for them to use, other employees to them work with. If I have all these values and mission statements all over the floor, but I don't give them the tools, the teamwork necessary, and cooperation, those mission statements, they're a joke.
Yep.
They're useless. In fact, they're offensive.
Yes.
Well, and that leads to, because if leadership, violates the values, employees they're going to vote with their feet. I mean, that's
no
just
question.
the bottom line.
Oh,
they're
absolutely.
just going to vote with their feet.
And
I don't like my job, and I don't think I'm going to go anymore.
chances are they'll start a mutiny.
And that's
if
gonna
it's
cost-
really bad, they'll organize and walk out together.
And
I've had that
that's an
happen too.
owner that costs you time and money.
Mhm.
A lot.
Big
a lot.
turnover is the
Yeah.
most expensive
Crazy.
employee cost center.
All right. Now, last one. Kel, what do you think about this? Thumbs up or thumbs down? You can rebuild trust after a values breach. Right. Not always
If it's
easy to do.
not
always
necessarily-
easy
not
to
always
do,
easy,
but you can.
but
How do you,
absolutely.
and how you do that? How do you do that? Like action, I know behavior. You're going to say the behavior,
Definitely.
You know, but
repair.
But you want an apology up front,
Of course.
recognition,
Of course.
You know, public. You know,
of course, big mea culpa. You know, if it's been like a boof on the company's part to the public with a product or something like that, absolutely a big like a campaign, a full, you know,
For
our
sure.
bad campaign,
Yeah.
and you own it. You just own it. You don't run away from it. You don't sweep it under the rug. You don't, you know, that's the fastest, I think, way to regain credibility is to go, we screwed up. Here's how we're going to fix it.
I like that. You agree, Art? Of course.
100%. Anybody can work with outstanding employees. It's the ones that challenge you that make you a true leader and see yourself as a partner into helping restoring that person. I like to have a good plan for restoration and lots of follow-up. They know there's going to be a follow-up. In a week or two, we're going to meet again and talk about this. When they know that, then they know it's not a momentary thing. Then again, I see myself as the agent because I do want to go the extra mile because when I'm done with that person, I want to know that I tried and look in the mirror and say, okay, you tried.
Everything you could.
That person, I did. That person interviewed well and maybe they made a mistake, but now their character's starting to kind of reveal. And boy, I've been there. Yeah.
Well, you kind of stepped into the final question for you guys today, and I want both you guys to comment on this. Is what is one first step any business can take this week to stop values erosion before it spreads? Kel, you go first. One step. First step, I should say.
Review the values, you know, like sit down and really have a review of, you know, when they were created and where you are today, and are they still in alignment? Are they still a match? Do we still believe that? And if you do, you know, you start fresh and reinforce them.
And you can alter some.
Yeah,
add,
of course.
take them away.
Of course.
Hey, we started out with this value. We're not able to deliver on it, so let's take it off.
Or our mission
Maybe
has
put it
changed,
back
or
on.
the
Yeah.
things have changed, or the world has changed, whatever. And yeah, that's no longer aligned with where we're headed. So this now is, and this is the direction we're going to go. But communication too is very, very important. If you have the review with the management, reaffirm whatever the values are, and then communicate throughout your organization.
Exactly. All the way down to the janitor.
Absolutely. Have an event if you can. You know, have just a team building thing. You know,
Absolutely. So, what about you, Art? What's one first step a business can take this week to stop values erosion before it spreads?
The awareness is huge, and the next step is the ownership. No blame. Don't waste time. I mean, it's great to understand what might have happened, and we covered some of that stuff earlier because the change is constantly happening around them, and you got managers doing their best trying to respond and react and keep the boat afloat. But it has to come from the top. You know, you don't want it has to be literally driven by and applied by, practiced by the top so that it is a culture and you don't have to have it written on the wall. But it happens from time to time, and I think we should be aware of that, and hopefully there's somebody that's paying attention saying, hey, you know, we got so busy with COVID, kicked our ass, and now we have another problem. We had a big problem. People don't want to come back to work. They want to work in their pajamas. You know, how do we deal with that? How do we address that? Our value is to have people working in concert together, close proximity, influencing each other. Again, a leader has to have vision, and he has to see these things coming. And when he doesn't, he has to create new vision for where he's taking his people. And if he doesn't know, then he better get better by, you know, contacting his mentors. You know, leaders, like coaches, sometimes they get stagnant because they think their job is to make somebody else better and make their team better. But if they're not getting any better, then you're practicing the same drills and expecting your team to get better. They need to be growing and staying ahead of their staff. I know, sorry, I feel like I'm getting on my little bully pulpit here, but everything rises and falls on leadership. I've had some great mentors in my life, so I think of them as I say that. So it's tough, man. It's tough. It's one of the toughest things you'll ever do is try to lead people.
Yep. You manage things, you lead people.
Yes, mentor said that very clearly.
Yeah, that's a Stephen Covey.
I love it. All right. Well, that's what's the matter. And shoot, man, values, if they don't shatter, if they erode, then, after everything we've said, I think the next move is simple. Don't wait for the collapse. Watch those little redefinitions, the little exceptions, that quiet, rules that rules for you, not for me moments, because that's where, culture kind of drifts. And so big thanks to World Matters Incorporated for making this possible. Big Bongo Productions for producing What's the Matter every week. Diaz Dixon, thank you for indirectly helping us have a bigger conversation with civility and the clarity. If this hits home, share it with someone who leads or someone who's trying to work inside a place that has lost its compass. A real quick teaser. Next week, episode 34, What's the Matter with Filters? How to maintain internal peace. We're going to laugh. Hey, we might cry. We're going to talk about human behavior that we can't control. And the one thing we can, which is ourselves. How to respond, not react. How to keep your peace without pretending the world isn't wild, because it is. So, from all of us here at What's the Matter, and for Mr. Art Arreola, I'm the G-Man for Kel. Thanks for listening. Stay curious, stay kind, and protect what you say because it matters. See ya!